Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Arrow After Show, talking all things Arrow after the show, as things would have it. My name's John Campea. I'm your host tonight, and I'm joined, of course, by my normal, regular, lovely co-host. First of all, sitting over on my left.
Hey, everybody. It's Ann Campea. I'm ready to hood up and talk about this episode. We are at a void with no Stephen right here.
Yeah, where's the fourth chair? Sitting over here on my right.
Hey, guys. Kaori Takee. I'm here. I'm missing Stephen Amell, but in good company all the time anyway. So.
And we should, now I'm going to let you guys know, we are going to talk tonight about this evening's episode. We're going to talk about the good things about it, the not so good things about it, overall impressions, and then we're going to take your guys' questions. If you got questions and comments you'd like us to bring up on the show, get on Twitter right now and tweet your question using the hashtag ArrowAfterShow that you can see right here. So send that on in. Anne's going to keep her eye on the Twitter stream, and maybe you'll see your tweet on our show. Now, before we get into tonight's episode, how fun was last week?
It was one of the best nights of my Arrow life.
My Arrow life.
I think it was the best night.
Yeah, we had Stephen Amell, of course, in here last night, which was a lot of fun. He was great. And you know, you guys were both jealous of me because I actually went and picked up Stephen last week. I drove him to the studio. I went to his place, we drove in, and it was just really cool talking with him and hearing about some of his background and getting to know some things that I didn't know before. Then we hung out for like an hour after the show was done. Maybe drinking a little too much, but
got some spoilers out of him.
maybe. Don't want to get anybody in trouble. And it was really great. And I love the fact that, you know, I brought up some negative things on the show, and I'll get to the elephant in the room in a second. But it was so great talking to him afterwards, and he's like, "No, man, if you're going to be a fan, you got to talk about the good and the bad." Mm-hmm. And I just love that about him. That's because he sees himself as an ambassador. Not just the star of the show and his responsibility to go to act in it and be a great Arrow. He sees himself with the responsibility of being an ambassador and a representative of the show. And I just love the way he conducts himself. Good Canadian kid. I love the way he conducts himself, handles himself. He's great on the show. He's great for the show when he's off the show. Just what a class act. Yeah. What was your favorite part of last week?
Gosh, just getting to chat with him, getting to interact and taking the fans' questions and being able to get his insight on it. You know, he didn't really give us that much. Obviously, he can't. But I think a lot of people were tweeting afterwards, you know, thank you so much for even just asking him, because a lot of people just want to know, you know, what does he think about, I don't know, Felicity? What does he think about Ray Palmer? Those kinds of things. And it was just nice to get that insight.
What was your favorite part last week?
I mean, just getting to know Stephen Amell as Stephen Amell. And he's, you know, he's so humble and he's so really close to all his fans. You know, he's always Facebooking and tweeting, and honestly, like, he's so appreciative of everything that he has and how much he's grown. And just getting to know him, I felt really lucky that night.
I have to address an elephant in the room, and then we will move on to tonight's episode. But I got to address this. Now, for those who watched the episode last week, at what point I said to him, okay, you know, even the things we love the most, sometimes we're hardest on, and being a fan isn't about sticking your head in the sands about the negatives, because I care more about the things that are negative on the things that I really love. And I love Arrow. And I looked at him and I said, I can't stand Laurel. And I said, this character is so bad. I remember thinking, this show's going to lose me if they make her Black Canary and blah, blah, blah. I literally got thousands of tweets. I did not realize how big of an army there were out there of Arrow fans who do not like the Laurel character. I was unprepared for how many of you. I got tweets with hashtag John Campea for president, all this kind of stuff that people seem to be bubbling under the surface, wanting somebody to say this Laurel character is terrible. And to be fair, I did get a couple of dozen tweets from people who are really big fans of Laurel. And that's the great thing about TV shows and movies, right? Is that it's all subjective. I mean, there's something that you could think is garbage that I love and is very special to me. Or things that I can think is terrible that you love and you think is special to you. And the beautiful thing is about it is just because I hate something doesn't mean you have to hate it. Just because you hate something doesn't mean I don't get to love it. And that's great. And so I did also get some tweets from a couple of people who are Laurel Lance fans that said I should die. That was a nice one.
That's harsh.
That was nice that I should die, and that they were very offended by my comments, because I guess if you don't like a fictional character that doesn't really exist, that's something to be offended about. But I want to address about the whole, I get lots of tweets about why, John, what's the deal? Why do you dislike this character so much? And what's the big problem with it? And, you know, why would you think about stop watching the show if they make her Black Canary is just one character? Here's the thing, and and I'm simply going to say all this not to convince anybody else to see things my way. You're going to think what you think, and that's totally cool. But to explain why I feel the way I do with a show that I love so much. Because if you know me, I'm the AMC guy. I'm a movie guy. I'm not really a TV guy. I don't have a lot of time to watch a lot of TV. And so if I'm watching a show, it's because I really like the show. And Ann and I have got a number of shows that we watch are really into, and Arrow's right at the top of that list. The Laurel Lance character is probably the most botched character in the history of television. And I mean that in all sincerity. I'm not trying to be use hyperbole or anything. This is a wretchedly awful character who is insufferable, whiny, indecisive, weak, just an awful trash of a character. It's awful. And I want to be very careful when I say stuff like that about one character. And the reason it stands out so much to me about how just abysmal that character is because all the other characters on the show are so good, especially the female characters. You know, they just have, the writers on the show have such a great way of writing female characters that when they get one that they so abysmally fail at with the Laurel character, it really stands out to me. And that's the case. Now, I've always understood that right from the beginning, the plan, because it's Laurel, the plan from the beginning of the show was eventually this is the girl who becomes Canary. We all kind of knew that. But what the showrunner of The Shield once said is that be careful, showrunners, people who run and write these shows, if you plan too far ahead, because what you have to be able to do as a showrunner and somebody who writes a show, you've got to be able to feel organically how is the show evolving and all that kind of stuff. And I think the writers of the show need to acknowledge that they've just blew it with Laurel. And that's okay. They got 1,000 other things right. The one thing they've blown is Laurel. And if you're really going to have, if you're going to correct the ship, you have to just acknowledge yourself, we blew this character. And now to make this awful, terrible character Black Canary would be a monumental mistake. It would just be a huge mistake. It would be a mistake to just say, well, this is the plan, just going to stick to the plan, and that's what I feel like they're doing. And it's systemic of a bigger problem with the show, and the one big issue I've always had with the show is that anybody at any time can become a superhero. Just like that. It's the easiest thing in the world. You know, when you look at Superman, Superman was born on an alien planet and whose cells soak up the radiation of a yellow sun. Batman faced his crucible as a child and spent his entire life training, becoming the most lethal human being on the face of the earth. The Flash, from a nuclear, some type of hyper multi-dimensional explosion, gave him the speed force, you know, is what they call it in the comic books, the speed force. And able to do that. Oliver spent 5 years on a deserted island, you know, well, sort of deserted, and anyway, going through some kind of unknown hell to come out the other side as this. Roy became Arsenal in 5 months. Thea, after going off with Daddy for 5 months, was now some kind of hyper ninja. Tonight, we saw a supervillain who was according to the show, 6 months ago was just the average damsel in distress in the streets, and now she can take out Arsenal single-handedly, is a super sharp archer, and if she wants to, could kill an entire club of people in a few months. And even Oliver, before it was 5 years on a deserted island, we were 2.5 years into his deserted island stint, and he's still getting beat up pretty easy. How does he suddenly become the toughest man on the planet? It's just systemic. If that's the one problem, is that anybody at any time, all you need is go take a few boxing lessons and you can be Black Canary. And so, you know, I told Stephen, I said, look, unless they come up with a really, really out of the box, completely out of left field, did not see this coming way of now continuing down this path of this horrendous mistake and making Laurel Canary, at that point, it's not me choosing to not want to watch the show anymore. At that point, to me, it's just my mind is going to have a complete disconnect from it. It's like, this is now too silly. And with superhero movies, they're all intrinsically, and TV shows are all, instinctually silly. But what it is, it's the supernatural, it's the unusual in the midst of the regular, in the midst of the normal, right? So, okay, Superman's a guy from another planet came to Earth. Yes, so that's the remarkable within the mundane. The rest of the world is still normal. It's Superman in it. But what I feel like if they continue down this path with Laurel becoming Black Canary. By the way, we saw those tweeted Black Canary pictures. They looked ridiculous. They look 50. Let's put, you know what? 75 buckles is not enough. We need more buckles. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the Laurel character. That's a design issue I didn't like. But anyway, if they continue down this path, to me, it's just going to create a disconnect in my head where, you don't decide. Once you put a bite of food in your mouth, you don't decide if you like it or not. Your taste buds, your body just tells you if you like it or not, right? If somebody tells a joke, you don't choose to laugh. Your body reacts to it. And for me, it's like, Arrow, everything works for me except for this stuff. And if they continue down that path, it's not a matter of me choosing not to like Arrow anymore. It's just in my head, it's going to create a disconnect that this is just too far gone. And that's what Laurel represents to me. And that's why I felt so strongly about Laurel. Not that you should. If you like the Laurel character, that's awesome. And you should continue watching Arrow and celebrate this path they have Laurel on. However, if you're like me, and I was really shocked how many people tweeted me that do think like me on this, they've blown the Laurel character, and them pursuing her, I think, is a big mistake. And one of the things I won't mention it in my positive about tonight's episode, but obviously the best thing about tonight's episode was no Laurel. That was so awesome. But anyway, that's the disclaimer. That's me addressing the big elephant in the room. Once again, if you love Laurel, my words should not dissuade you, because this is your journey with her, and you should love her if you love her. And if you're like me and you don't, you don't. And then it's up to the show where they want to go from there. But anyway.
Well, I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I'm to the extreme that you are yet.
No.
I don't like the Laurel character at this point. I think, like you said, she's been up and down. There have been episodes where I have really enjoyed her. She served a purpose. And then there's other episodes where I'm like, why is she there? So I'm not there quite yet where I just don't know how to feel about her. And I want to trust in what Stephen told us last week, that the writers will get us to that point where we could believe that she is.
And that is what he said.
Black
He
Canary.
looked at me and said, hang in there. So I'm going to give it a few episodes to see how they explain her becoming Canary. But like I say, at this point, it's going to have to be something extraordinary, like she dies in a car accident. Some mad scientist in the DC universe removes her brain and puts in the brain of a much better character. And then, I don't know, it's going to take something like that, something extraordinary. Steven said hang in there, so I'm going to give it a few episodes to see how they make this happen, but it's got to be something remarkable because, man, I got such a problem with this.
And I also feel for the showrunners, the people who write the show, because one of my favorite things that I read from season 1 from the writers is that you write as if you're not going to have another season. So if their intent was to, bring Laurel to this point, to have her be Canary. Did they ever know they were going to have a season 3? I'm not sure, but it's just they're writing with a finite amount of time. They don't know how long the show is going to be, so perhaps that's why they're pushing Canary so quickly.
I almost would have preferred if they made her Canary in season 1 and not let me get to see what a terrible character she is first.
I actually really didn't. We did it after show for season 1, and I hated Laurel Lance. I hated her character. I couldn't stand anything she did. Even in season 2, most of the season, I thought, what is she doing? She has a drug problem. What's going on? She's not sure what she's a mess. But then towards the end, it started making sense. I'm not saying I like her now, but there's some sort of belief that I have in her now at this point. Like, maybe she can do it. I also didn't like Sarah as Black Canary. I really didn't like her either. I'm like, what is this bitch doing here? I just didn't like it. So, we all have different opinions. I think there's a chance, there's a shot that this can work.
And look at
Well, she is taking boxing lessons.
Roy is a good example. Last season, we were wishy-washy about Roy. You loved Roy.
I love Roy.
You always loved Roy. But this season, I don't mind Roy at all. I don't mind Thea. Like, characters that used to bother me or maybe annoy me in season 2 have grown to serve a purpose in the Arrow Cave or whatever. So for me, I think we should just wait and see what they do with Laurel.
Yes.
I don't think we're at that episode yet. I believe episode 10 is where I'm reading that she might suit up.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's when we can make a...
After 4 weeks of boxing lessons. That's awesome. Okay, so anyway, but let's get into tonight's episode, because for me, there was actually a lot of cool things to talk about tonight's episode. We're going to talk about the positives first, and let's start with you. Some of the things that stood out to you. What was the episode called? Draw Your Bow or something like that?
Something like that.
Something along those lines.
Episode 7.
Yeah, it was episode 7. That's the name of it. And things you liked about tonight's episode.
I liked all of the Arrow Trinity moments. I thought we got a little more of that where we've been lacking in the other episodes. Diggle being the voice of reason for Oliver in this episode, encouraging him to tell Felicity how he feels, you know, like just get out of your own head and just let her know how you feel. I really like those moments. I love those moments every time they have those one-on-one conversations. I also liked the brother, little brother, big brother, Arrow Arsenal thing that they got going on now. The fact that Arrow is actually calling Roy Arsenal is kind of cool. Now we finally have a name to what Roy is doing out in the field or whatever. And I like that he's kind of coaching him and trying to be that mentor for him. And you really felt that in this episode. I like the flashbacks. You know, I haven't really understood what the flashbacks have been about up until this point. I find like they are finally serving a purpose and coming to what we will now see, how Oliver grows from these flashbacks, how he learns from Katana and, you know, her husband or whatever. And I love the scene, seeing Katana kick all those guys' ass.
Oh, she's so badass.
Yes.
She's awesome.
I mean, where in an episode where we really lacked action in present time, I thought her scene when she had the swords out was perfect. That was a perfect amount of action.
She was Miho in that scene. She was totally Miho in that scene. That was awesome.
Yeah, she was great. So I can't wait to see more of her and see that relationship grow now that I think Oliver and her now have a closer relationship in the flashbacks. So I think he has a lot to learn from her too. I also like Ray Palmer in this episode. Sorry, Felicity fans, but I really like Ray Palmer. I have loved him since he's been on the show. I love Brandon Routh in that character. I think he just fits right in. I've said that since episode 1 of season 3. And I love how much attention he is showing to Felicity. She totally deserves that. He is saying it's platonic, but let's be real here. He obviously has feelings for her. Yeah. And it's causing a little stir with Oliver and his emotions for Felicity as well. But we need that, you know, Oliver isn't really a character that feels a lot, or at least is good at expressing his feelings until it comes to Felicity. So it has to be something like Ray Palmer, this billionaire who not only has taken over his company, but has changed the name of his company.
And now is taking the girl.
And now is taking his girl to stir those emotions in Oliver. And I like that there is a catalyst for that. And I think Ray Palmer's the perfect person for that. And seeing a glimpse at the Atom suit.
Oh, that was so great. As soon as they said, wait, dwarf, what?
Yes.
And I said, because remember, they said that, I instantly sat up and said, and that's the stuff he uses to become the Atom. And then they brought the suit up and stuff like that. But I'm glad you brought up that thing about Oliver getting his emotions stirred up, because a lot of lesser shows, what they do is just forget, well, okay, yeah, it was just a few episodes ago that he was in love with Felicity, but now they've moved on. I like the fact that there are consequences to actions in this show, right?
Yep.
So her now wanting to go with Ray, I like the fact that they didn't just sweep that under the rug with Oliver, that Oliver had to face those emotions and deal with them, and it upset him, and I love that they did that. I thought that was really great.
Yeah.
And what about you, Carrie? What are some of your positives?
Well, this is why we're Team Amazing, because as she was listening, I'm like, these are all my positives.
I'll come sit next to you.
I wrote that they had, awesome backstory. I really like that. Finally, there was more motivation and more reasoning there. Ray Palmer was by far my favorite in this episode. My favorite performance of him so far. I like his crush on Felicity. I think they're actually kind of a cute couple, if that was the case. I mean, I like their chemistry. The Atom suit was awesome. I love watching Felicity being treated right and being spoiled by a man. Rocking that dress, she looked gorgeous.
Oh yeah. She looked
oh my gosh,
amazing.
Stunning. She can be Black Canary. She's buff too and everything. She's looking great. I wrote Arsenal, and also I really enjoyed seeing Austin Butler. He's a CW alum, and he's from Life Unexpected, and he's in this episode. He's kind of in my negatives too, but I was happy to see him. So yeah.
Some of my positives, I gotta, well, since I already kind of half mentioned it, Stephen Amell, again, going into places emotionally that we haven't seen him gone before. And this one was jealousy. And I don't think we've really seen that out of there. And it was a controlled anger. You know, he's like holding it in, just smash his hand on the table. Then, okay, fine, I'm Arrow, whatever. And I really like the way he portrayed that and handled that. You're right. Felicity has earned this. She's earned this. And that's part of the reason why I think I like the Ray Palmer character. Now, look, I know a lot of Felicity fans are going to be really mad because, she's supposed to be with Oliver and all this kind of stuff. But look, I remember when Diggle came into her office and was like, "Hey, you know, but this is tearing up Oliver." I wanted her to say, "Well, tough. What am I supposed to do? Am I just supposed to sit here and not do anything till he's been Arrow for 5 more years, and then maybe he's ready to go on a date again? Screw that."
Yeah.
Like that's kind of, and I'm so glad that she stood her ground for herself. Look, Ray is a great character. He's like, forget the fact that he's super rich and multi-millionaire. He's a guy who's dedicated to wanting to save the city. He wants to save the world. He's so good to Felicity. He's so good to her. Not just because he put a $10 million necklace on her neck, but he's been patient with her. He's been understanding with her. He's been a companion to her in many ways, like a comrade in many ways. He can think on her level, which she doesn't often have the opportunity for.
Yeah.
And when it came down to it, we were just talking about this in the elevator, he's a fucking gentleman. Like, he starts to make out with her in his office, and she was ready to go. I mean, she was totally ready to go, and he was like, "I said I would keep tonight platonic, and that's what I'm going to do." And he left. And I'm like, this, you know, in the words of Batman, this isn't the man she deserves, this is the man she needs.
Yes.
I thought, this is great. And you know, before enlisting fans get too mad at me for feeling that way, remember, I've always felt that I love the chemistry between Felicity and Oliver so much that I've always been hesitant to see them want to get involved romantically. Don't get me wrong, I would have lived with it if they did. But I like them the way they are, and so I'm kind of glad to see her find happiness. It wasn't working with Oliver, wasn't working with Barry, maybe with the Atom, the guy who's treating her like the best, and I think that's incredible. Obviously, the Atom stuff, that coming to fruition was great.
Yeah.
Ray's speech
Yep.
about his vision
Yeah.
for the city, all that kind of stuff. We got another guy doing salmon ladder now.
I know.
All of a sudden.
That was great.
That was great.
He steals Oliver's thunder all the time.
And I mean, Diggle is back to his. He is the anchor. He is the rock. He's the one who is always looking out for them, for everybody on the team. You know, and I love all that stuff so much. And yeah, I was actually told Ann on the drive over here. Tonight's episode to me kind of highlights all the awesome stuff about this show and the weaknesses about this show. So let's get into that part of it. So Ann, what were some of the things that you thought maybe didn't work about tonight's episode?
I was gonna say Captain Boomerang, but I liked seeing him. I just don't see where it's going yet. So he's neither in my positives or negatives. So I'm just gonna put him in the middle for now.
And by the way, if you were like me wondering, who is this guy? I know this guy. Azure from Spartacus. So cool seeing another Spartacus alum in this show. Which, by the way, in case you didn't know, Stephen Amell was this close to being Spartacus.
Really?
Yeah.
After Andy Whitfield died, you know, Andy was at a party of ours, and you got some great pictures with him, actually. And when we thought he was in remission, and then a few months later we found out he passed away, and they were going out to get a new Spartacus. I think it came down to, what's the guy's name? McIntyre?
Yeah.
Something McIntyre. It came down to between McIntyre and Stephen Amell
Can you imagine?
to be the new Spartacus. And they end up going with McIntyre. I think they would have been better if they went with Stephen Amell, but that's just me. So yet another Spartacus, and I loved him I loved Azure on Spartacus. Anyway, sorry, back to the things you thought could have been better.
Okay, so I'm gonna guess we may all have the similar negatives, but I'm gonna start off by saying that I didn't like the DJ, Thea's new love interest.
How
weird.
stupid was that?
I
Kind
agree.
of just like an unnecessary character. Maybe it will be something later where Roy gets jealous kind of thing and they'll play off of that. But for now, I was just like, this guy is just so random. He doesn't fit in.
And douchey.
And douchey.
It's like, really? A DJ? You had to make it a DJ?
And then he's like, hold on, let me DJ. Push
Yeah,
the button,
press play
DJ.
button.
So cheap.
And everyone just starts, yeah. Anyways, I could have done without that. And also the Villain of the Week episode. Again, Stephen warned us that this would be one of those episodes where we
Yes,
have
he
the
did.
Villain of the Week. And of course, it's Cupid. Nice to see Cupid from the comics in the show. And while I like the actress, played crazy to the 1000th degree as well as anyone could. I just hate Cupid, but I hate Villain of the Week episodes. They just aren't my favorites. So, and like you said, I don't like that she could have stood toe-to-toe with Oliver and knocked out Arsenal.
Technically, she beat him.
Yeah.
Technically, she beat Oliver, took out Arsenal in 6 months.
That was
Okay.
annoying too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was just, I'm sure you guys can elaborate on that.
Anyway, some of the things you thought could have been better about too.
I agree with her. Cupid, I thought she was scary, and that was a good positive. And you know, love can always be creepy when you're obsessed with somebody. It's kind of what the fuck is going on. But how did she get so good so quick? I didn't like that. I didn't like how the DJ.
I feel like we got to ask that about a lot of characters on this show.
Yeah, and then I didn't like the DJ thing. Like, he just comes in out of nowhere and then gives her a kiss and says, "This one's on me." Okay, where you come from. Roy Harper, I want to see more of him, not because I like him, but because I like him. Okay, Felicity fans might kill me. You might agree or might disagree, but look, like, I feel that it's like exaggerated how much he likes her, how the intensity. You know, you think about it, it seems more territorial than actually really caring about it. It just moves so fast. Season 1, he was still in love with Laurel. She went off with Tommy, whatever, that didn't work out. He was more calm and collected when that happened, right? And then season 2, he was in love with Sarah. He didn't really, like, he knew Felicity had feelings, but he was always like, you're more of like my sister. And then suddenly, season 3, he wants to take her out on a date, and now he's out in a rage because he lost her and stuff. I don't believe that. That's something that's twisted for me as that. I just don't buy the Felicity Oliver thing. I just thought it was too soon. It was just like, let's make them let's tease the fans with them loving each other. I just don't really like that. And I like her much more with Ray, excuse me.
For me, with the whole villain of the week thing, I found a new pattern in the show. Last week, episode ends, okay, episode's over. Now as a precursor to the show, they're taking him out into the prison trance thing, and new villain shows up that we've never seen before, says something quirky, and then kills a guy with some kind of puncturing blade and drops him. This week's episode ends. Now we're in the prologue. Random guy shows up with a bladed weapon, kills him. I'm the new bad guy. And it's like, that seems to be like the new pattern. It's like, come on, guys. Really, you got to come up with something a little bit better than that. I already talked about this particular villain. She was a little too crazy. Once again, the whole thing, really, you went from 6 months ago being rescued in the street to now you're fighting the Arrow.
Someone did point out on Twitter, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but somebody did point out that she was ex-SWAT.
She was a cop, but they're not ninjas. You know,
True.
I remember thinking that too.
But she has a little bit of training.
How could she be a cop when she's crazy like that too? It's just weird.
That's why she stopped.
Yeah, well, they did say in the show. That's
cuckoo.
why she, they sent her away and stuff like that. But honestly, everything aside, there were a number of things about that were all connected to tonight's villain that I didn't really like. But it was all just the stuff connected with tonight's villain. I found everything else outside of the villain stuff was great. I loved Felicity in this episode. I loved Diggle in this episode. I loved Oliver in this episode. I just, and I also liked the flashbacks a bit. I liked, seeing all that kind of stuff. It was just, for me, just a really solid episode. Just a really, really good episode. And once again, highlighted by the fact that there was no Laurel. So, anyway, we said we would save some time. We got a few minutes left here, guys. We want to know what you guys are talking about. So tweet us quickly at the hashtag #ArrowAfterShow. Anne's got a few things lined up here on your phone that you've been monitoring. So what are people asking on Twitter?
Ton of questions. Thank you, guys. First question is from WardGal09, who asks, what are your thoughts on Oliver missing in present time for a couple of episodes?
It all depends. Stephen told us last week that he's going to be missing. It all depends on what their setup to that is. If it's because Oliver needs to go away for a while and they focus on, oh my gosh, if they focus on like Diggle and Felicity taken down, solving some crimes together, I think that would be awesome.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think it's good because it's good to flesh out, even though the show is about and always will be about Oliver, Oliver becomes stronger if you flesh out the characters around him more. And by dedicating a little bit of time to flesh out other characters, if that's what they're doing, I think that's a really good thing. And I think that's a really smart thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Stephen said that he's not in none of the episodes. He will be in the episodes in a flashback or whatever. So don't cry because he will be in the episodes.
Yeah, Stephen Amell will be there.
In some way, shape, or form. And I don't know if he said this as his answer to the question on our show or if this was off camera, but somebody did wonder if he's going to be kidnapped or something. And he definitely said, no, that theory is in the trash. That's not true.
All right.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
What's next?
So Nerd Truth asks if Diggle is going to keep going on missions with Arrow and Ollie wants to protect his identity, Dig needs to wear a mask. This is not a question, it's more of a statement.
I love that whoever tweeted that said that because John cracked me up when we were watching it saying, Why is his accomplice not wearing a mask?
Well, no, because the scene happens, right? They go in the apartment, and in comes Oliver dressed as Arrow with his mask on, and right behind him is Diggle with his gun. And I'm like, why wear a mask if you're going to bring your bodyguard along that everybody has seen you with, not wear a mask? What's the point? I mean, and then that tweet came in, which is so hilarious.
So great.
They know that they hang out.
Like a couple episodes, remember Diggle at least put on a ski mask. Remember that couple episodes? At least there's that. Like, what's the point in wearing masks if you're if I'm going to break into a bank, right? Why would I bother wearing a ski mask if I bring Anne along with me without a mask? Hi, everybody. I'm Mrs. Campea.
No, that's not John. I swear.
No, not John
that's
at all.
not an AMC hat.
That's me.
I know, it's Corey. I know. But Stephen did say that Diggle will be wearing a costume, and I'm afraid that
No,
it's
he
more
said he's been pushing for Diggle to get a
Oh,
costume.
really?
Yeah,
I thought he
yeah.
said he would
Pushing.
come into one episode wearing something, but it's not what we think it is. And I have a feeling it's going to be one of those cheesy, like,
gonna be like
he's
a
wearing a
banana
Santa
suit.
costume or something. Right? Anyways, okay.
Oh my goodness.
So, NS Bless asks, what happened to the Watchtower from the Series 2 finale, which was basically their second lair where they were in that hidden basement?
Yeah, I think somebody else might have brought up that question before, too. Great question. Don't know.
Yeah.
It might still be there. They've got the main cave back, so I guess,
I thought that kind of just disappeared along with Canary and Sin, right?
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure
Feels
it's
like it.
around. It wasn't like a high-tech
I still
place
want to know
anyways.
how nobody else has found this basement yet.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Cupid found it.
Well, she found the club.
Yeah,
but
she
like, how
knew
does
in the
Thea,
area.
How's Thea own this club in there every day and is, I'm not just gonna. I'm just not gonna look behind that door. I just don't care what's
She
behind
almost
it.
did in an episode.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. Tron3712 asks, why isn't Walter helping Oliver with the company? Walter helped him retain control of the company last season.
Yeah, narrative-wise, I totally get why he's not there because he's not part of the story. And they wrote it that now he's not working with Queen anymore, not even called Queen Consolidated anymore. He runs a bank or something like that. So he's busy doing his thing. And unless they have a story purpose for him back, I just want him back because I think that the character is so damn cool. I just like hearing him talk.
I like him too.
Yeah.
That dude's voice is so cool.
Another consistent character where you just kind of feel like comfortable and calm and feel like everything's going to be okay when
It makes
Walter is
me-
on camera.
It makes me miss the mansion too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
94 Beyond asks, do you think we'll see Cupid again in the second half of the season?
You know what? One of the things this show has done really well is introduced us to story elements that we think maybe they'll never touch again, and then they come up again, whether it's characters or whether it's storylines or whatever. I think there was a reason they sent her to Waller into the Suicide Squad. By the way, you guys caught the Harley
Yeah.
Quinn reference?
Yep.
He said she's crazier than that other female member of Suicide Squad they had. And I don't think they're done with Suicide Squad either.
No.
So,
Oh,
and if they
no.
do use Suicide Squad, now they've got a reason to bring her in too. So whether it's the second half of this season, I'm not sure. But I would put my money on that we'll see her again at some point.
And as strange as it was that she became so skilled in such a short amount of time, I kind of did enjoy her character. I know she's crazy to the bone, but it's kind of like thrilling to me, like to watch her being obsessed with Oliver. It's a different kind of villain for him,
Yeah. All right, two more really quick.
All right, T-Snow21 asks, do you think we will see or hear of Hive again? It has not been mentioned since season 2, episode 6.
Remember, this show introduced some things in season 1 that they waited 2 years to pick up on again. I'm sure they've got something in mind for Hive. It may not be this season even. It may not even be next season. But the pattern of the show, they plant seeds and then reap them later. And that's one of the things I think they do really well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we're gonna see them again.
Okay.
I think in this season.
At least
You
a
think this
mention.
season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
All
take
right.
the last question of the night.
JM Evans 2009 asks, how long do you think it will be before Oliver and Thea discover the truth of one another?
I don't know. This is not a bad thing about the show, because sometimes things in a TV show that make you mad, it's good that they make you mad, because that's what they want to do. And damn it, that whole song and dance about Oliver and Thea both promising we're going to tell each other the truth now, and 5 minutes later they're lying to each other again, that's good television. But it makes me going, oh, come on, you two, just talk to each other. Oliver, everybody else on the planet knows who you are now. That's one of the things Stephen joked about last week. Like, clearly the writers don't care about my secret identity. So why not the one person you love and trust the most? Why not Thea? Especially with everything going on with Merlyn, you'd think that would really be an impetus for him to go, look, there's something you need to know. I'm Arrow. Or something like that, you know? And then maybe that would open up the gate for her, but it's good television. It's good television. Do you guys think they'll finally break those walls?
I think they will, and I have a feeling that it'll happen just because that's episode 10 is supposed to be so pivotal. I think it's going to be around that one.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if Detective Lance will know about Sarah's death before or after Thea and Oliver come clean to each other.
That's another thing that
Too many
bothers
secrets.
me. I feel like Detective Lance has the right to know that his daughter is gone.
Yep.
You know?
And this whole excuse of he has a heart problem, he can't handle it. He's the chief of police.
Yes.
He's dealing with highly stressful things every day. And, you know, hey, look, Lance, your daughter, the canary, the true canary, died. But don't worry, your other daughter will soon become the multiple silver belt buckle canary. And maybe at some point she'll tell you that, you know, your daughter's dead. I don't know.
Oy.
Oy, I know. All right, folks, that will do it for us. We've got a little bit over time on this installment of the Arrow After Show. Listen, keep the conversation going. Use the hashtag Arrow After Show to continue communicating with us or communicate with each other too. Just get on Twitter and search for the hashtag Arrow After Show and see what everybody else is saying as well. Keep the conversation going. And listen, don't forget, here on the Stream.tv network, this is a fan show network. There are lots of other great fan shows on the Stream.tv, including, if you're an Arrow fan, one for The Flash. And so you should absolutely be checking that one out as well. And so that'll do it for us. I want to thank, of course, Ann Campea. Ann, where can people find you online?
You guys can find me at Ann Campea, and I can't wait to talk about the crossover episodes that are coming up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very exciting. So happy with how The Flash is turning out, too.
Yes.
I was really worried that show was going to be a big pile of shit.
So good.
It's so good. It's so good. Of course, over here, Miss Kaori Takee. Kaori, where can people find you?
You can find me at KAORIOUS, Twitter and Instagram, and you can follow Ann and I at Team Amation.
And you can follow me on Twitter, just at John Campea. So that'll do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Keep talking amongst each other. Keep the fire burning. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.